Do you know how pilots create their own collapses? This happens all the time. Today, we're going to review a clip sent in by a viewer so that you guys can avoid creating your own collapses. Ready? Here we go.
See ya.
I'm paragliding!
See ya.
Hey everybody, what's up? This is Ari in the Air. Welcome back to the channel. Stoked you're here. I'm Monetaire here on YouTube, back from Instagram where I've been building a business, launching the Paragliding Men's Group. More on that soon. We've got some videos coming out from the Paragliding Men's Group, next couple that you'll see. Super good. So today we are reviewing a video that was sent in by Eugeniu from Romania. I assume he's Romanian because the clip is from Romania. So let's take a look here. Okay, so wow, that happens really quickly. Oh, still cravatted, pumping it out. We're quite low to the ground. Still some real rough air here, kind of wingtip collapses over and over. Okay, wow, that's a short clip. So let's roll it back. Let's go through this thing. What do we see? First of all, he's flying on a BGD Punk. He is real low to this ridge that he's over. Lots of clearance down below towards the village. Let's go through this slowly. Okay, so my intuition here is, I've watched it once before. Let's watch it one more time here, knowing that the collapse is right off the bat. Big collapse, comes out in a horseshoe. Okay, so let's go back to the moment of the incident here. Let's watch his hands. Obviously, there's active air. He's turning hard to the right. Okay. And then we're looking up at the glider. It's going in front. There's no additional brake being added here. The lines are already slack. Look at the right risers, always already spaghettiing. And now we are just like in free fall. Because look, the entirety, this is a 100% collapse. 100%, literally. The entire glider is showing the top surface. Oh, look at that frame. That's so gnarly. Okay. And then he has a small cravat. It turns the glider 180. Before he kind of just does a symmetrical brake pump that pumps it out. It's not exactly the best technique for that. We're going to get into that. But let's talk about this collapse here briefly, because definitely this has something to do with pilot error. But if you look at the sky, it's kind of overdeveloped. It was probably a very thermic day. It looks like cumulus cloud development that has overdeveloped into a lot of overcast. So as we see here, big right turn. And then the glider is diving out in front. Right here, we just remember the fundamental rules of paragliding here. When the glider is behind you, you go hands up. When the glider is in front of you, you pull the brakes. And you pull as much brake as you need until the glider stops proceeding forward. When it stops going forward or down, right? When it starts going down towards the horizon, you pull as much brake as you need until it stops going towards the horizon. The moment that it stops, you let up on the brakes, okay? But what we see here is this glider shoots out pretty drastically, and we needed enormous brake input here. We needed like hands below the seat board symmetrically until the glider stopped coming forward, right? But we didn't get that. We can see that there's like an active piloting amount of brake here. If you look at the trailing edge, it's just barely kinked at all. So we know that there's really just not nearly enough brake input right here. Here's the thing about paragliding, folks. Everyone needs to know this. A lot of beginner and intermediate pilots are too timid on the brakes. This is one of the reasons that SIV and acrobatics training is really important, because it really shows you how much of the brake range you can actually use. And what I will tell you, someone told me years and years ago, was that you can pull an infinite amount of brake for a finite period of time, or a finite amount of brake for an infinite amount of time. This means that on any given cross-country flight of mine, I expect to what I call ring the bell, which means I'm flying along, I'm actively piloting, and then some big slack event happens in my lines where I lose brake pressure and I just push until I find brake pressure. Sometimes it's all the way down. Sometimes that feels like a collapse, but either way, ringing the bell is something that's going to happen, especially in cross-country conditions. The glider is flying through all kinds of tumult. Like, it's flying through such active air. As they say, if you could see the air, no one would fly. There's lots of things, swirly, twirly, turbulent things that are happening in the sky, and as the glider flies through it, it's going to have to deal with that. So as if the glider's in front of us, we can't be afraid to ring the bell, to really control it. When something is so far out in front of us that we could take 100% collapse and have the thing disappear, we really got to be confident enough to ring the bell, like pull the brakes below the seat board, but for an instant, right? But for an instant. On our next video, I'm going to show you an example of where the pilot actually pulled the brakes really well, but actually let up too soon and then takes a big collapse. So there's a million ways that it can happen. Also, this is not this says nothing inherently about the pilothood of Eugeniu. What it does say is that, guys, if you fly thousands of hours of cross country, you're going to take collapses. You are going to have moments where you go hands up when you should have gone deep into the brakes and you lose the glider. This is going to happen, but the intent of my video here is just to show you one moment where a pilot who has 250 flight hours at the time was flying in a known site, took a huge 100% collapse because he was a day late and $1 short on his brake input. All right. So when the glider's in front of you, big brakes. Okay. I think this is very clear. Looking right here at this frame, we can see that his brake is at the pulley. He is essentially completely and totally hands up when he really needed to be full brakes a couple seconds ago and probably persisting through this moment. That could have stopped the collapse. But at any rate, we are where we are. So let's go through. He's got his hands up here. The glider goes way behind him. His feet are now above his head. And the glider, as we first see it, is completely and totally horseshoed. There's really still no brake input. This is modern glider technology, which is basically the pilot puts his hands up and it's going to sort itself out for you. This is why if you're not super confident with all kinds of stalls and helicopters and backfly, then B gliders are for you. It does cravat a little bit, but on its surge, it mostly clears itself. Okay. So right here, what do I want to see? I want to see Eugenio lining his head up behind the right riser. He's weight shifting away from the cravat, but you can tell already just the angle of his helmet. He's actually looking at the cravat, which is kind of a no-no. If it's a benign cravat like this size, look at the horizon, weight shift away, get control of the glider's heading, because right now you don't really want to go over the back here to the left, because to the left is high terrain. It's high terrain. So where you want to go is flying out towards the valley where you have more clearance. If you have to throw the reserve, if things cascade, you want more ground clearance. So you actually want to be steering the glider to the right here. You see he is pulling a little bit of brake on the left and not nearly enough brake on the right. We can see that by the tail fabric, not nearly as crumpled up on the right as it should be, or it could be. So what I want to see here is immediate huge weight shift to the right and pulling the right brake to steer the glider out over the valley, start gliding in that direction, eyes off of the cravat, just get control of the heading. Looking at this configuration, if you look at this glider, this is 100% controllable. It's not one of these gigantic 50, 60% cravats that we've been looking at in the last week. This is a totally flyable glider. You need to weight shift. You need to steer yourself out to the valley, start flying in that direction. But at any rate, he looks at it, and then he kind of just pulls symmetrical brake input. Here's the other thing, folks, is as the cravat, what you see here is basically the glider dives over, and then as he swings under and he pulls the brake, there's a lot of airspeed building up in the glider, which translates to pressure in the glider. So as the airspeed increases, the pressure inside the glider increases, which makes pumping more effective and also just makes the glider more prone to clear the cravat on its own, especially in the B class here, as we're seeing on the Punk. Now he's in this position. Now he's kind of faced over the back. The air is still very turbulent, from whatever swirl is happening. And he's taking little collapses left and right. He's also holding on to the brake toggles without a half wrap, which is not my recommendation. I've made that recommendation a lot, that you should have a half wrap. Little turbulences after that, the video ends. I assume that he made it out of here just fine. And I super appreciate Eugenio sending us this video, the second Romanian this week that we've reviewed. What a beautiful place this looks like. I would love to visit Romania. And wow, just such a spectacular collapse as we watch it just one last time there. Just 100%. Hundy P, baby. Hundy P. So, summarize. Gliders going forward, got to be pulling on the brakes. If the glider's really going forward, you really got to pull on the brakes. You can pull an infinite amount of brake for a finite amount of time. Can't be afraid to ring the bell, especially in cross-country conditions. If you do take a collapse, hands up on a B glider is a good practice. Although as we start reviewing Enzo, you've probably watched some of the Enzos and the Zeno videos that we've been doing. It takes a little bit more input than that to make it come out clean. But right here, as you have this little cravat, weight shift hard, fly the glider over the valley, keep lots of altitude, control the heading of the glider. Don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. Don't let the glider turn you. I'm trying to beat this into your head. I'll start beating some relationship rules into your head real soon. But I hope this is helpful. Thanks again to Eugenio. Shout out to the Romanians. We'll see you on the next episode.